Alright, we're back with our final video on abnormal psychology. We'll wrap up with a few classifications of schizophrenic disorders and personality disorders. Starting first with schizophrenia, let's make sure we understand it is not multiple personalities or dissociative identity disorder. Schizophrenia is marked by hallucinations and delusions. Basically, disturbed thoughts are there and are affected based on these problems. The word psychotic itself doesn't necessarily mean dangerous. I know we think of it like psychotic individual as a killer. Not necessarily. Psychotic just means out of touch with reality. And again, it's probably because of those hallucinations and delusions, which we'll get to in a second. Schizophrenia is one of the more scary disorders, in part because it can be very difficult to function with, and also because when we look at the general population, those without mental illness, people with schizophrenia are 8 times more likely to attempt suicide. There are positive symptoms of schizophrenia, and here are those words: hallucination and delusions. Now, the word positive doesn't mean good. It means add, as in extra symptoms those of us without schizophrenia do not have. Hallucinations are false sensory experiences. You see or hear or feel things that are not real, though to you they're absolutely real. Delusions are false beliefs. So basically, they're beliefs about the world, ideas about the world, perhaps even linked to those hallucinations that do not conform with reality. So, you hear voices and you believe it is the FBI telling you to do certain things. Well, that's a hallucination, and then the delusion is the belief about that. There are often disorders of movement for some schizophrenia, such as catatonia, where you see a strange movement or sometimes absence of movement. You can have waxy flexibility, unusual body tics or mannerisms. Those are all positive symptoms. There are negative symptoms as well, and typically they have to do with social and behavioral withdrawal, so inability to connect socially, to understand or read individuals, inability to function at a typical level. And a good example is a flat affect, which you've read about in your book. Ultimately, where does schizophrenia come from? It seems to have very, very strong roots in biology. In fact, most of our most successful treatments, as we'll look at in the next chapter, are medications such as antipsychotic medications. It does look like there are neurotransmitter issues and reduced activity in the prefrontal cortex. So treating that with a biological model, which we'll learn about, seems to be the most helpful. Now, I've got one more classification, and these are a bit different than the other disorders. Those are personality disorders. Now, your personality is your stable set of characteristics, the traits that define who you are. Some of you are outgoing, some of you are shy, some of you are open to new experiences, while others prefer things the way they are. Those are all traits that define your personality. So to have a personality disorder, we're either talking about individuals who have traits that are maladaptive, that might be dangerous, or perhaps even someone who doesn't have a perceivable personality, that those traits keep changing, that they're so fluid they become unuseful in predicting behavior. Currently, DSM-5 recognizes 10 personality disorders, some examples being schizoid, which is not schizophrenic. Schizoid is a disconnect from people or a desire to have social contact. Dependent personality, such as your codependent individuals, and even narcissistic personality disorder, which is those individuals who feel they are above, they are better than others, and you must acknowledge that. They perhaps can grow, at best manipulative, at worst violent. I'm going to focus, though, on 2 personality disorders that are 2 of the most dangerous personality disorders out there. The first is anti-personality disorder. These are the guiltless, law-breaking individuals, those who will engage in deceitful behaviors to get whatever they want. It does not matter how their behaviors hurt or harm anyone, as long as they get whatever their goal is. It does appear more common in men than women. There's a subset of antisocial personality disorder that you've probably heard about, and that's the word psychopath. Not the same as psychotic. In this case, you do have your remorseless, violent predators, those who will use any means to get what they want, regardless of how their actions affect others. Possible causes, well, we do wonder if it is more common in men, that maybe testosterone linking or interacting with other genetic difficulties might be part of the problem. We do find that people with antisocial personality have low prefrontal activity. Remember, the prefrontal cortex, the frontal lobe, are things like impulse control, problem solving, and that might explain why they take these more dangerous, if not deadly, behaviors. We do find that people who have antisocial personality process information differently, specifically emotions. They don't register empathy or fear the same way as we do. And finally, there is borderline personality disorder, which is a very unstable personality. This is one of those that seems all over the scale, hard to nail down, hard to predict, very unstable in identity and affect, typically have very intense relationships that move from best friends to ultimate enemies in a heartbeat. It's not uncommon for people with borderline personality disorder to engage in self-harm tendencies. Cartman from South Park is really my favorite example of borderline personality, if any of you have seen the show. Well, that wraps up this video, so I'll leave you with this graph of where are we today in the U.S. with the number of people experiencing mental health issues. Now, these numbers here in the left column, these are in millions, so almost 7 million Americans experience general anxiety disorder, almost 20 million experience a phobia of some kind. So you can see how the breakdown works and the percentage of the total population there. So when you see something that says 1.1% of Americans experience this problem, I don't want you to think, well, that's a small number. Thankfully, it's not higher, but realize we're talking about 2 to 3 million individuals. So be aware of that. All right, well, thanks for paying attention and watching these videos. We will wrap things up with a whole new video next time.